Hello and welcome to February's webinar. I'm Pat Patterson, and we're going to be talking about how Amplify won with egress, storing their data on Snowflake. So a little bit of housekeeping as we get started. The webinar is being recorded. So if you have to drop off, if you have to attend to something else, don't worry. We will send you a link as soon as the recording is available. Please do ask questions at any point during the webinar. We'll get to them at the end. So we like to see those questions stacking up ready for us to answer. And on the right hand of the screen, you'll see a number of little icons. One of them is like a paperclip. That's a set of attachments with documents and resources relating to the subject matter. So let's move along. So as I mentioned, I am Pat Patterson. I'm the Chief Technical Evangelist here at Backblaze. And I'm joined today by Ameya Pathare. Ameya, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do at Amplify.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, so as Pat mentioned, I'm Ameya. I am the co-founder and CTO at Amplify. Was there since the beginning, setting up our data infrastructure. And so happy to talk through some of that and some of our decisions there today. And prior to Amplify, I worked at a data analytics startup that was acquired by MasterCard, where I did several different roles, but most recently led a data engineering and business insights team there. And as I'll mention a bit later, a lot of the initial inspiration for the product came from my experiences at MasterCard.
Very cool. All right, so big data in the real world.
Yes.
Okay, so today we are going to give you a little bit of background on both companies. And then Ameya is going to share a bit about Amplify's journey. It's a fairly new company. So talk about why he and his co-founder started Amplify and their journey to date, including their migration to Backblaze, which for me, at least, is the most fascinating part of the story. And we'll kind of dive into that, how data moves around their platform. And then towards the end, we'll have that opportunity to answer your questions. So, Backblaze. I'm going to assume that most people on this call have heard of Backblaze. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but basically we are cloud object storage with a focus on simplicity, reliability, and very much on affordability. So we say we're about 1/5 of the cost of AWS. That depends on the mix of storage and egress that you're working with there. And we are very much S3 compatible. So in almost every case, if you have an existing application or tool that is Amazon S3, then you can switch to Backblaze B2, as Ameya discovered. So Ameya, just give us a high level, what is it that Amplify does?
Yeah, happy to. And I think it would actually be helpful to explain a bit of the motivation behind Amplify here as well. And so generally, everyone's aware that there's been an explosion in the amount of data that companies are creating, as well as the data processing power that exists. But the side effect of that is that there's also been an explosion in data teams. Right? So every company of a certain size has a data analytics team that have set up their own data analytical environments, and they're often tasked with analyzing data from a mix of different SaaS tools or internal sources, and they run analyses and make dashboards. Right? As an example, a data analytics team might pull company data from Salesforce. They might combine that with click data from Mixpanel and payment data from Stripe to analyze website conversion rates. Right? And so what's happening is that all of these different SaaS tools that they use, they have in-app analytics, but that doesn't work for the data teams, right? They need to combine it with other sources. They need to do their own analyses. Actually, one company we were talking to, they have their team log into each of their SaaS applications. They split it up amongst the team on Sunday night, and they all click export to CSV, populate a joint Google Sheet that then powers a dashboard. And they're a SaaS company.
Okay, yeah, that sounds a little bit clunky.
It definitely was. And they're a SaaS company themselves. And we were telling them, if you're doing that every week, you certainly don't like that. Why are you providing the same experience to your customers?
Right. Because each of those dashboards is basically its own silo. And what the business really needs is that combined view across those different providers.
Exactly. And so a lot of companies are taking notice of this now. So Salesforce, Mixpanel, and Stripe, those companies that I mentioned in the beginning, they actually now offer a data access feature as part of their software platform that improves customer experience, stickiness. Some of them even charge for it because they can access now previously unavailable data team budgets. And where Amplify comes in is we give you this feature out of the box. It's a white label solution to give you a data access feature for your customers.
Got it. So if you're, so you can look as good as companies like Salesforce and Stripe.
Exactly.
Excellent. So you've told us a little bit about this. Go into a little bit more detail on why the motivation here.
Yeah. So a lot of the initial motivation was brought on by the fact that data sharing between orgs is broken, right? Right now, it's all of the tooling and processes and things that people focus on is sharing data between where you have full control over both the source and the destination. As soon as that assumption is broken, it's very difficult to transfer across clouds, manage the credentials across the different places. And so oftentimes what ends up happening is the consumer is just at the mercy of whatever the data provider can do. So if the provider says, you got a CSV export button, the consumer will have to take it. If the consumer wants something on a recurring basis, they'll have to orchestrate it themselves. Right? And so we wanted to make a better experience for data consumers and data providers as well. And we believe that the data providers have all the info they need to make a good customer experience. We just want to give them the tools to do so.
Right. Yeah, I've been in situations where the information you wanted was literally just in a table on the web page, and that copying and pasting from a table on a web page into a Google Sheet is great fun. All right, so this is what one of your customers might see.
Yeah, this is. So there's two parts to our platform, right? There's the embeddable data console, which is what we're looking at here, that is a white label table that gets exposed to our customers. And then there's the admin portal here. But I'll just talk through the data console here, right? So here we have a number of different data sets like usage logs, consumer lists, sales orders. As a end user, now I could log in, click consumer list or customer list, see when the data was last refreshed, see a preview of the data. I can then choose to explore it. And so here's where choose to access the data. And here's where a lot of the magic comes in, right? I can choose the download, which is generally the only thing that's available. But I can also choose now if I want it in a S3 bucket, or I can get it directly in my Snowflake. Or if I'm a BigQuery shop, I can get it directly there or in Tableau, right? And providing all of these different options involves some infrastructure challenges on our part, and that's what I'll talk through a little bit later. But the alternative to just getting the data directly in BigQuery, right, is one level is export a CSV button, right? The next level is, okay, people start asking for something programmatic, and so the SaaS company will then say, okay, we'll set up an API, give you access to the API, right? But then the consumer has to read from that API, figure out the pagination, load it into the database. It takes a lot of time and expense on the consumer side to do so, speaking from experience there. And often they'll even pay third-party integration tools to make that happen, right? Compare that to, and compare that to a native Snowflake sharing experience where instead of having to do all that manual work, people can just click get, and then it shows up in their Snowflake ready to query. So it's an analytics ready data is what we are aiming to provide.
Right. And so with something like Snowflake Share, what you're giving them is the ability, like in their own Snowflake. So you've got your Snowflake instance in the data consumer Snowflake. They can select from that just like they can any other table and build it then into whatever analysis they're doing. That's the kind of idea.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the lowest common denominator, I'm going to guess that the most frequently clicked item on this list is going to be CSV download.
Certainly, if the data fits there is a yes. CSV is the most common because that's what people are used to. That right?
Yeah. And you get the file in front of you, and you can get your hands around it. So we're kind of digging in a little bit, and it's pretty clear here. We'll kind of go into a bit more detail on why, but Snowflake is the core of this architecture, right?
That's right, and part of the reason for that, just to orient you to the diagram here, right? So we have data that is sitting in data providers' databases, right? So they have their own BigQuery or Snowflake or S3 bucket that contains the data.
So these are your customers on the left, right?
These would be our customers on the left.
Yeah.
And then there's data consumers on the right, and they could want to consume in a variety of different formats. But the challenge is that you don't know what the end destination is going to be while you're setting up the initial thing, right? We want to solve for a one-to-many and a one-to-any problem, right? And so to enable that, we had to have a data storage and transformation layer in between. Right? And so we're using Snowflake as the hub there. But what we also realized is that for a number of the file-based data consumption options, like via API or SFTP, or just downloading a CSV, we needed a file stage to kind of make files in. So we started with Snowflake because we wanted to be able to manipulate the data, do transformations on it. But then when it came ready for the last mile, staging it as a file was necessary for some of these. And that's where we started out with Amazon S3. You'll notice that Backblaze is not anywhere on this diagram at the moment, but we'll get there.
We'll fix that. Right. And so, yeah, it's quite elegant. You've got this many-to-many problem, and anybody that's worked with databases knows that many-to-many is not a tenable situation, and you've broken it into two one-to-many relationships with yourself as the kind of broker in the middle. And so the files that are stored, it's essentially a cache, right? In principle, you could read those, fresh every time from Snowflake. It would just take a lot of time and waste a lot of computing resource generating those. So they sit in that what's in this diagram an S3 store, just so they're ready whenever anybody wants to download them.
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so we've got Snowflake at the middle. Why Snowflake in particular?
Yeah. So there are a lot of different types of databases, right? So there's key value stored databases, NoSQL databases like MongoDB. There's I don't know if the listeners have heard of like OLTP versus OLAP databases, right? So there's OLTP is transaction processing data. So this is like Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server. These types of databases are good for transaction level inserts and reads. They are not very good at aggregating across billions of rows. Right? Now, then you have OLAP analytics processing databases, there are a few cloud ones like Snowflake, BigQuery, Redshift, Synapse. I think Databricks is kind of in there, right? And those are good at aggregating kind of column-wise, saying like, give me the sum of all data in this column, right? And so analytics processing, Snowflake was one of the leaders in this space, and we're cross-cloud. So we had the customers that we were working with could be on any cloud, and so wanted to be compatible with all of that. And so we chose Snowflake for those reasons. The other two are interesting as well, that we needed it to be dynamically scalable because we don't know the source and destination or even the size of the data ahead of time, right? You kind of have to, on the fly, figure out how big the data is, how much processing you need to do, because it's not all within your control, as you said. And then lastly, a lot of our potential customers are using Snowflake, and we can run the data storage and transformation layer on Amplify hosted Snowflake, but it can also be a client hosted Snowflake, and that can make the integration easier.
Right. And I guess you need that, you need that elasticity that a new customer comes on and says, oh, I've got, I don't know, 2 petabytes of data I want to share. It's not your problem as Amplify. Snowflake can just, ingest that without even blinking.
Yeah.
Cool. And so here's a real example, right? Dewey is one of your biggest customers.
Yeah, can talk through Dewey. I think they have a really cool use case. So they're powering a data marketplace for academic research. And the way they came about is that generally when researchers are doing analyses, right, they access data sets from other researchers and papers and publicly available data, right? But there's a lot of private data that companies are aggregating and selling that would be valuable, but it isn't generally available to the research market, right? So instead of every university or research team finding and licensing that data from each provider individually, Dewey will license that data from all these different data providers and provide a subscription access to universities and research teams. And so this is a previously untapped market for a lot of these providers, since they don't generally sell to universities and academia. And it allows this valuable data to be used for research purposes, which the researchers are happy about getting access to that as well. And so the entire platform is run with Amplify's technology, both the UI and the data transfer part of it. And the researchers are very data hungry. They're downloading data every day. There's, I think, over 100 terabytes of data across the 25 different data providers on the platform now. And some of these examples range from website data to kind of retail sale data. Scoopos Samba TV is like TV viewership data. So a lot of interesting research can come out of these, and so Dewey's enabling that for the different researchers.
And this diagram is very reminiscent of the one 2 slides ago. You've got all of these data providers, and they don't want to have relationships with all of these data consumers, and Dewey acts as the kind of the central point, and you're providing the technology to that underpins I guess the relationships that Dewey is managing.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Cool. So you started out with we saw a couple of slides ago, you started out with Amazon S3, and I guess you had those startup credits, right?
Yeah. Yes. So this came as a little bit of a rude awakening to us. We had a bunch of startup credits on S3, and we got an email one day saying, "Hey, your credits are almost out." And I was like, "There's no way that's possible." Like, we just got these, and so when we looked into it, it was all of the costs are being eaten up by egress costs. And I think even though this talk is titled Amplify's Egress Win, maybe we should explain what egress is.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, like I think egress is like the industry term. I guess most people would be more familiar with just like download, right? Your business is making this data available for data consumers to download, and you've got a CSV sitting there, and people can download it all day long, right?
Not without costs, right? So,
Right. Well, exactly. That's I guess that's the rude awakening you had, is that if you've got what is it, a gigabyte? I think it goes, the prices is down to the gigabyte. If you've got a gigabyte file there, every time somebody downloads that from Amazon, you, Amplify, pay Amazon 9 cents.
that's right. And yeah, this is definitely a play to keep you in the cloud. Some of it maybe for bandwidth costs, but they don't charge for getting data into Amazon. They only charge for getting data out of Amazon. And yeah, the most common product that the Dewey consumers were consuming was actually a 2 terabyte data product. And so that's roughly, I think, $180 each for each time they want to consume.
That's crazy. And we've broken it down here as an illustration. I've got to say, like, the Amazon want you to check in your data, but they never want it to leave. So they're like the Hotel California. But it's probably the millionth time that joke's been made. But we've broken it down here. So like 10 terabytes. So that would be kind of maybe like an Amplify customer might have 10 terabytes with you. The storage cost for that is, relatively manageable, right? $230. But you're distributing this data on your customers' behalf to their consumers, and it's not like, people just download it once. They've got multiple consumers of a given file, so could easily get to that whole 10 terabyte data set being downloaded 3 times across a month. And that is just a shocking figure there. It's more than 10 times the cost of storing it, just having it downloaded in an average month.
It was a rude awakening to get that email.
Sure. So what happened next?
So then we started some internet research. Certainly other people may have faced this problem, right? And I think everyone assumes that an S3 bucket from Amazon is the default, but as I learned through my research, there are many other options, right, that are S3 compatible, which means they can have the same code that we are using to interface with the Amazon S3 bucket we could use for any of the S3 compatible options. We looked at, I think, a number of different options like DigitalOcean and Wasabi. We were looking for things that were compatible with Snowflake's external stage functionality, because we were using Snowflake as our main store. Looking for things that had a Terraform provider, obviously had best class security, and but probably most importantly was looking at the egress cost structure, since that was the main reason we were using this storage was for as a download stage, right? And so Backblaze, out of all the options we looked at, seemed to have the best structure there.
Yeah, and we've worked up the same illustration. Now, this is interesting. Snowflake itself runs in one of the hyperscalers, so I guess by default AWS. So you've got to get the data out once, which is like the big number in this calculation. But after that, once it's in Backblaze, we charge you. We give you free egress for up to 3 times the amount of data you're storing, and then it's just a penny per gigabyte, so 1/9 of that AWS cost. And really, the math here is like 2821 down to, it's about 1/3 of the cost.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're in a one-to-many situation where the same data is being downloaded month after month, or with maybe some minor updates, the difference becomes even more stark, right? Because there's less cost in the export to Backblaze once, and there's still no charge for the downloading.
Right, because in month 2, this goes away, and you're paying $60 to store the data, and it's an even bigger, because in month 2 this just repeats all over again.
Right.
And here you're down to $60 bottom line. That's pretty. That's pretty incredible. I mean, for your use case, this data distribution, it's I can't see that it would make any sense. I'm a little bit biased, but it's a
it made sense for us. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, listeners, viewers, we do have a poll. So if you click on, it looks like it's the second icon down, we've got a question there about whether egress fees impact your strategy and whether you're seeking alternatives. So yeah, we'd like to know if you've encountered this problem, and how you're looking at dealing with it. So okay, so you've done the math. You've identified that B2 is going to be a great fit for your business model, and so you had to actually make the move. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we were very motivated to make this move because basically every week that went by, it was costing us hundreds of dollars in egress fees, right? And so after we identified Backblaze as the suitable replacement, we were able to leverage the same Boto 3 Python library we're already using in our app. The only changes we had to do was switch to use the Backblaze specific endpoint URL and region. We had to make a one-day support ticket with Snowflake to enable Backblaze as an external stage. Probably the most time-consuming thing was setting up a Backblaze Terraform provider to kind of spin up a different Backblaze bucket for each of our clients. And then we had already had our code written in a way that the file-based storage that we use as the stage was swappable on a dataset by dataset basis. And so we ended up transitioning the datasets in batches from S3 to B2 by regenerating the files from Snowflake. And all in all, it took about 2 weeks from the idea to the production implementation. So as seamless as one could hope for, I think.
Wow. So, and that's interesting that just the way that your platform worked, it wasn't worth copying from S3 to B2. You could just point it at B2 and set it going again. I guess that tests that everything is working, and then you ended up just deleting the files from S3.
Yep.
And doing a little happy dance around the office. So that migration happened, and now I think the striking thing here for me is there is very little change here. I mean, it's isolated down to this area here. Everything else remains the same, right?
That's right. Yeah, we had to change our code and our infrastructure very little. This whole data storage and transformation layer now is, as I said, Amplify can host it for some of our clients. Some clients may prefer to have their own Snowflake, and so if that's the case, they also can bring their own S3 compatible storage, and we're recommending that they use Backblaze in those situations as well to save them.
Yeah, why would you not? Right. And so this box here could be at Amplify, could be at your customer, but this is where your secret sauce is. Here is this control plane, and the meta. This is always under Amplify's control, I guess.
That's right. Yeah, we've separated out the control plane and the data plane so that for some of our more security conscious customers that don't want the data to ever leave their own servers. They can provide their own Snowflake and Backblaze.
Right. So this is really under the customer control. And then for if viewers are already somewhat familiar with Snowflake, what's going on here is Backblaze is an external stage, and it's copy into, isn't it, that you use to unload a Snowflake table into a variety of file formats in storage.
Yeah, that's right. The copy into command is very fast, very scalable, which is great, and compatible with Backblaze. And so that was one of the things we were looking at is in Snowflake's documentation. They said, here are the S3 compatible storages that we can work with. And so that's one of the ways that we got to Backblaze.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually one of the attachments is the Snowflake doc talking about exactly this, using external stages here. And so is it, and this is just my own curiosity here, so do you export into any other file format? So Parquet, for instance, is very much more compact than CSV. Are folks using that, or is it pretty much CSV at the moment?
Yeah, so CSV generally, if that is the end format, if we're using that to transfer to, say, BigQuery, right? Actually, the way that you can do that most quickly is by exporting to Parquet and then loading from Parquet into BigQuery, and that tends to be the fastest way to do it. And so we do support Parquet, CSV, JSON lines.
Right. So even this arrow here going from like the Snowflake up to BigQuery is effectively taking a trip through the S3 compatible object store.
In that case, going to BigQuery, it would go through the Google Cloud Storage.
Oh, I see. Got it. Oh, yeah. Google Cloud has an S3 compatible API. You're right. Excellent. Okay, so so it's all working now. Did you have any disruption for customers? Do customers even know that this happened?
No, I don't think so. Customers didn't even know. This was mostly on our side.
I guess if they're downloading a CSV file and they look really carefully at that URL,
the URL will change slightly.
The only difference. Excellent. Okay, so this is all working. What happens next with Amplify? Yeah,
so I think we're excited to see what novel use cases people come up with, right, for our technology. Our goal is to increase data access, data democratization. We don't want the chosen analytical environment to be a barrier. Right? Feature-wise, we're expanding into the BI analytics environment. So that's Tableau. We just launched. We're coming up with Power BI and Looker soon. But to date, we have people that are using it for data selling. And we already talked about the SaaS data access feature. I think at MasterCard, we would have used this, and we've had a lot of interest in just using this for internal data access, right? Just making an easy place for people to get internal data. And so, excited to see what people come up with.
Yeah, because I mean, I worked at a company doing data pipelines for 6 years, and it's very cool stuff. But from the point of view of a company like MasterCard, this is boilerplate code that doesn't have anything to do with their core business. This is just code that has to be there to get data from where it is to where it needs to be consumed. So this is, I could see those big companies taking this rather than having to write a bunch of Python themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And so and a question we often ask people is, okay, you've got all this money that you saved from moving to Backblaze. Where are you putting that to work? How does that work out for you guys? You've freed up, I don't know, some number of thousands of dollars a month. That's enabling all of these next steps, I guess.
Yeah, that's going right into our development. So we're continuing to rapidly move into different analytic environments, move into self-hosting. I think we're exploring becoming a Snowflake native app and running directly on there. And so doing all of those developments is now easier now that we have a little more cash runway.
Awesome. Okay, so we're getting towards the end, our little wrap up here. So from the point of view of Backblaze, there's some key points here. One is that Backblaze B2 as an S3 compatible cloud object store really integrates seamlessly with Snowflake. It's one statement in the Snowflake SQL UI to set it up as an external stage, and from that point on, it just works the same as any other Snowflake stage. We have this idea of the open cloud that we are really pushing against this idea of egress fees and trying to bundle everything together into one provider's environment. Backblaze philosophically wants you to be able to use best of breed tools at your choice from wherever you want to use them. So we're very motivated to provide this free egress of up to 3 times your monthly storage, and after that at a very affordable rate. And in fact, if you are working with one of our CDN partners, so like Fastly or Bunny.net or Cloudflare, or one of our compute partners such as Vultr or CoreWeave, you have unlimited egress. In some cases, we have dedicated network links between Backblaze and our partners, so that data doesn't even flow across the internet. So we're able to provide that at zero cost. So before we get to the Q&A, resources as well as the attachments there. Amaya, you're at amplifydata.io. That's the place to go. And Backblaze, you can always find out about B2 at backblaze.com/B2. Okay, so let's jump into the questions, and we do have a few. So let's see. Simon asks, do you store customers' PII, personally identifiable information, and how do you ensure this is held in the correct legislative region? For example, not storing EU citizen data in the US.
Yeah, I can take that one. So as I was mentioning towards the end there, we've split out the control plane from the data plane. So if our customers have some more strict security requirements or region requirements, they can provide their own bucket and their own Snowflake, and we would just do the orchestration with Amplify. And so we wouldn't handle that more sensitive info.
Okay, so that could be in the case where you're managing everything. That could be a bucket in Backblaze's EU region, which is based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Or if they've got particularly fine-grained requirements, they can go with any cloud object storage provider down to the city that they want to be in, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really at your customers' control that they decide how that's going to work.
Exactly. The infrastructure is fully modular in terms of what, even on a dataset by dataset basis, can be stored in different places if needed.
Okay. There is a question I guess I can pick up. I can talk about it a little bit. How does Backblaze compare against the competitor W? Well, I guess competitor A is Amazon. We've spent some time talking about them. I'm going to guess that competitor W is Wasabi. I don't spend a lot of time working with Wasabi. I know some of the main differences that, in particular, that we've been talking about. Wasabi, I think, are the same kind of price and maybe a little bit more for their storage. One big difference there is Wasabi say, oh yeah, you can have free egress. And if you look into the terms and conditions, I believe, don't sue me if I'm wrong, I believe they say you're limited to the amount you're storing with them. And they don't explain a lot about what happens if you go over that limit. There's no overage price quoted, so a little bit hazy on what happens if you want to download 3 times your data every month. If you want to know more, Garrick, if you want to know more about stacking up Backblaze against Wasabi, drop us an email, and we can have somebody have an in-depth conversation with you on that topic. You can always email me, pat@backblaze.com, and I'll get it to the right person. Our sales team love questions like that, believe me. Another question here, I guess, from Shu, I think it is. How is the egress fee calculated? By the volume of data transferred over network or stored on cloud? For example, 10 terabytes stored can be compressed to 1 terabyte and then transferred. Egress fee is then for 1 terabyte or 10 terabytes. Okay, so we're getting down into some details here. You store the data in Backblaze, and let me think now. You can store it compressed and then customize the transfer encoding. So then, you're egressing the compressed data. We don't have dynamic compression on the way out the door. It's down to how you store it. I've actually looked into that topic. Storing, say, gzip data, and if you have the correct HTTP headers, it arrives at the client uncompressed. Anyway, again, drop me an email if you want to dive into the detail there. I've probably got some sample code on compressing data and transferring it and how much you're charged for. But the bottom line is it's how much we read from storage and send across the wire. So, couple more questions. We've got a few minutes. Did you face, Amaya, did you face any challenges during that migration? And if so, how did you address them?
I think the only challenge was that when we first tried to do it, the Snowflake copy into didn't work out of the box. We had to file that Snowflake support ticket to enable the endpoint, that specific endpoint. But that took a day, and so that was a very minor roadblock.
Right. They mentioned that in the docs that if you want to step outside the hyperscalers, you have to file a ticket for them to open up that particular endpoint.
Yeah. Okay. Seamless.
And here's another great question. How does performance with Amplify and B2 compare to the previous infrastructure? Have you noticed any difference there? Are you?
No, I think everything has been comparable. I think we didn't do down to the millisecond tests of everything, but for our purposes, this is data distribution, and so people are. It's more on a scale of, do I get it this hour? Not do I get it this like half second? Right.
Did you mention a 2 terabyte data set? That's the kind of chunk that people are manipulating?
Right. That's what they're getting, and so it's not on a fractional second basis, and so we haven't seen any difference.
You have no complaints. Yeah, 2 terabytes. You kick off a 2 terabyte download and you go and make a cup of tea. You don't sit and watch it happening. Another great question. How can people get started with Amplify? Do you have a documentation or guides? How would somebody like that watched this and thought, this is cool, I want to get into it? How would they get started with Amplify?
Yeah, so we're actually pretty proud of this. So we recently launched on our website. We have an interactive live demo. So people can go in, click around. They can actually download some data sets and experience what the end consumer would experience for them. And then we have a free tier to get started as well with, exactly. So this right here, we have an interactive version right on our website. That is the live production code.
Right.
And then, yeah, we have a free tier for people to get started to see the kind of the admin side of it and get started with their own data.
Got it. So you can actually kind of bring up a proof of concept web page with the, I guess is the Amplify widget kind of embedded in the customer's web page, or is just the whole web page being served from Amplify?
The whole web page is being served, but we have an API for some if people want to do any more customization on that.
Got it. So your proof of concept, I guess, would be branding everything and bringing it up to look, to look seamless. And your camera seems to have gone away, Amaya, but we're almost done. So one final question we have time for. We're just coming up on 45 minutes. What other roles or departments in like the customer organization that would be, making the decision to use Amplify? Who are you talking to? Is it IT? Is it analytics on that kind of data provider side?
Hey Pat, I was kicked out for the last 30 seconds. So I missed it.
I'm sorry about that. I'm not quite sure what happened. Okay, so yeah, the question was on that data provider side, your customers, who in the company are you talking to about the decision to go with Amplify and actually making it happen? Is that like an IT department, or is it like an actual line of business?
Yeah. It's generally the product team, actually. So we're an embedded product feature that they would have to essentially decide to put in front of their customers. And so the product team is the one that's generally making the decision that, okay, this is something our customers are asking for. This is a capability that we want to include. And so let's start embedding this. We've also seen we've also seen the customer success team get involved because they're kind of doing it. They're the ones fielding these questions from customers of, hey, I want the data, and the customer success team is running a SQL query and then sending them a CSV file. And so they're often some of our most staunch advocates because that'll save them a lot of time.
Right. So it could be revenue generation or cost reduction effectively going on at your customer.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just out of my own curiosity, what about on that consumer side? I'm guessing it's going to be the analytics teams.
Exactly. Yeah. It's going to be the data analytics teams, the ones that have their own data warehouse or analysis platforms. Generally, because the people that are okay with SaaS platform in-app reporting are the end users of the platform, but those data teams want it outside of the platform. And so any company that's big enough to have their own data team is the target there.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amaya. Apologies for that little glitch at the end. And thank you to everybody that joined us today. I found that absolutely fascinating. And yeah, best of luck to you and Amplify as you grow the business.
Thanks so much for having me, Pat.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.